Hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 of today's video. Where we left off, I just played c4 with the idea of taking away some of the squares of this dark squared bishop on e7. However, we'll see over the course of the next phase of the game how black is able to slowly increase his advantage just by playing simple logical chess and putting his pieces on better squares and sort of increasing his pressure over certain areas of the board. So the first step in this plan is just queen to c7, and the idea of this move is it exerts a little bit of pressure on e5, and also it coordinates these two rooks. So if he's able to put his rooks on d8 and d7, his position would be almost ideal, with perhaps the exception of the dark squared bishop, which currently doesn't have a great square at the moment. So I have some coordination problems of my own. The pieces aren't very harmonious, so I took a while here just to think about how I could best deploy the pieces, and I thought the simplest way to improve my position now is just to bring my knight to the e4 square. So that's what I did. And one idea from this position is that perhaps eventually I'll find a way to get this knight to the d6 square when it might force off the exchange of minor pieces. So that was one possibility in this position. So black just continued with normal developing moves. So rook a to d8, hitting the queen and gaining control of this d-file. It's fair to say that black has now succeeded in achieving this aim, and it's a nice trump to have in the position. So there were basically two different ideas here, and one was queen to c2 and the other was queen to e2. I liked the idea of coming to the e2 square just to reinforce control of the e-file and overprotecting this e-pawn indirectly. So that's what I did. So we saw queen to e2, and now black follows up with a natural plan by playing queen to d7. And so the next move will be rook to d8, just reinforcing and just even further showing his command of that d-file and his superiority in the position. So I had to do something about this, so I thought the most natural idea here was to play rook a to d1. If I don't do that now, the rook would swing to d8, and then it wouldn't be possible to play this afterwards because the pieces would just come down here, and then the knight would be on pre in the center and the bishop would just capture it. So anyway, black continues with just another simple move, rook f to d8, and his positional advantage here is quite significant, I think. I looked at this position for a while and I decided that I had to take. The continuation I was afraid of was as follows. Let's just play a waiting move here just to demonstrate this. So like a3, so if we had rook takes, rook takes, rook takes, queen takes, and then I lose this knight on e4. So I have to do something about this. So in the game I played rook takes d7, and rather than recapturing with the rook with d takes d7, he played queen takes d7, and I think his superiority in this position is quite clear now. I challenged the d2 square here by playing my queen to d2, which is protected by the two knights. there was some tactics to be aware of here, so I had to calculate to make sure that I wasn't losing after this continuation. But I saw that after queen takes and then rook takes, rook takes, that I was able to get back to this square. So I had to be careful here, but as you can see, white would have been fine, and in fact this position would have been quite drawish had black made that mistake. So after queen d2, black plays queen d3. So he's putting pressure on this square now, just threatening to capture with bishop takes e4. So I'm pretty sure that I'm forced to take here. So I played queen takes d3, rook takes d3, and now I played, I think, what was a weak move. I'm not under any immediate danger here, and I should have just sought to improve my position with a move like h3 or just king to f1. I mean, it's black definitely has the advantage here, but it seems like white could hold the draw if he can find the most accurate play. But just to give you some idea, I was down to probably about 10 minutes at this stage to play the rest of my moves. And I think my opponent had maybe 30 minutes or 40 minutes. So he was able to use much more time in this late stage of the endgame, or in the later stages of this game. So I played now knight f to d2. So what I wanted to do was just reinforce this e4 square and maybe play f3. I had to be careful though. I mean, this is okay for now. The two knights defend each other, but this is a very fragile kind of position, and in your own games you should generally avoid this kind of structure where the knights defend each other, because it's easy to undermine it. Let's say f5. If the en passant capture was not possible, I would be forced to move one knight and the other knight would drop off. But I'd seen that I could get away with this for now, at least, because I can play the en passant capture and then take some defensive actions before he's able to, exploit this situation and take one of the pieces. But it probably wasn't the best idea. So now we saw f5. I have to capture en prise, and now g takes. Now I played my knight to f3 because I think I'd realized how fragile that situation was, and I'm still okay here. I think if, let's say, if the bishop takes now and the rook would take back, the rook coming to here causes me no trouble because the rook can still come back to e1, and the knight on f3 is covering this potential entry point on d2. So he just plays king to f7. I played h3, creating an entry square because I was concerned about the possibility of a back rank mate here. He plays a5, so he tries to get something going on the queen side, and now rook e2. This is another mistake. It's a little bit passive. He plays a4, and now probably the losing move, knight e1. Things really fall apart here. I think king f1 was the way to go. So I'll just wrap this up quickly now. Bishop takes e4, rook takes e4, and because the knight coming to e1 basically gave up control of this very important d2 square, so now he's able to jump into d2, and you'll see my position falls apart very quickly now. So I'm going to lose the b2 pawn. So I've tried rook e3, and after rook takes b2, rook a3, I figured I was winning this pawn, but of course his rook can just come to b4, and now I really needed to play rook to c3, but I played knight to d3 with about 30 seconds left, or just a minute or two left on the clock rather, and after he captured on c4 I resigned. So it was an interesting game. My opponent just gradually outplayed me, and in time trouble I sort of fell apart, but it was quite instructive to see how a stronger player conducts that kind of a game where there's a slight advantage and then converts it to a win. I hope you got something out of today's videos. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.